stunning looks than swift.
It's been 20 years since we had a men's ODI World Cup which did not see New Zealand make the semi-finals. If they are to maintain that proud run, they have to fight Sri Lanka and potentially today the elements as well in Bengaluru. Welcome to Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. Into the last 5 fixtures we go with so much still to play. 2 teams in action at the Chinnaswamy Stadium on Wednesday, but there will be at least 5 other teams who will be glued to their television screens. Today we have some fine fast men for company. Steve Harmison continues to be with us here in the studio. Good day to you, Steve.
Good day.
And we have Farveez Maharoof joining as ever from Sri Lanka. One final time for Sri Lanka. Good to have you as always, Farveez. Steve, bodes well for the tournament that you go into the final round of league stage fixtures with all but 3 teams having so much to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that yesterday, it's a masterstroke from the ICC to drop in halfway through the tournament that the top 8 are going to qualify for the Champions Trophy, because it makes this week so much more important for a lot of teams. We could see all 3 teams in chasing that semi-final spot. You know, we could see New Zealand, Pakistan, Afghanistan all lose because they're playing obviously good sides in this tournament. We could see some rain around today. New Zealand only get 1 point and still go through because England beat Pakistan and South Africa beat Afghanistan. So there's all to play for. Sri Lanka, they just don't want to be the team, I think unfortunately with the Netherlands playing India, they don't want to be the team that goes down with the Netherlands. So it is hugely important and there's loads riding on this game.
Yes, as Steve points out, Farveez, that late news of Champions Trophy spots hinging on this World Cup has added to the drama of the last week, because so often you can find that this stage of a long league stage, the teams that are out of contention don't have much to rock up for, but there is so much on the line.
I think as well as pride in stake as well. That's why you play in international cricket. You play for your pride, you play for your country's pride. So, you know, you don't have to have motivation to play for Sri Lanka or any other countries if you are not going to qualify. There's plenty at stake, and to add fuel to the fire comes the Champions Trophy scenario in the middle of the tournament. So that add more spice. So I think for Sri Lanka, it's very important. They pull up their socks. They lost the last 3 games. You know, not looking in good shape. But you know, playing in Bengaluru, it's anyone's game. The stadiums being such a small grounds. You know, everything is up for grabs. If I'm being really honest to you, so Sri Lanka will want to go out with a one big effort.
And the bit I love when a long league stage reaches this kind of a conclusion is all the permutation and combinations. Let's try to simplify it for our viewers. The scenarios on the line for New Zealand as they take on Sri Lanka with just that 1 spot remaining for the semis. You know, we know there are 3 teams, New Zealand, Pakistan and Afghanistan, who can all still make the semi-finals. As long as New Zealand get the win today, they keep their fate largely in their hands. That's because of the significant net run rate advantage they have on Pakistan and Afghanistan. To put things in perspective, if New Zealand were to win even by 1 run against Sri Lanka, it will need Pakistan to have a 130 plus run margin of victory after scoring 300 against England. And for Afghanistan, it's even, the odds are steeper still, because they will need to beat South Africa by 273 or more runs if they are to surpass New Zealand's net run rate. But if New Zealand don't win, that's when things get exciting. A defeat today or even a washout would mean that if any of Pakistan or Afghanistan are to win their remaining fixture, New Zealand will be out, and that team, Pakistan or Afghanistan, will make it to the semi-finals. From an Indian context, obviously, that means that if New Zealand win, India versus New Zealand will become the semi-final, which will be in Wankhede. If it goes the other way, it could still be India versus Pakistan at Eden Gardens. I'm wondering which way Indian fans are thinking about this.
I think if I was an Indian fan, I'd want to play Pakistan, because I think, forget where you're playing, I actually think New Zealand will be a harder test in the semi-final than what Pakistan would be. I think Pakistan have got match winners. I think New Zealand have got a team who can put 50 overs together, 100 overs together, and we've seen in the past, and you were mentioned right at the top of the show, 20 years without New Zealand in the semi-final. You know, these guys know how to get the job done. And 4 years ago, they were obviously a super over away from being, victors in this competition. So I think the danger for India would be New Zealand. I think they would. I personally, if I was an Indian fan, I'd rather play Pakistan because I feel as though that would be not an easier game, but I think a game that we could manage better.
Just looking at the New Zealand perspective, Farveez, they find themselves in this position where they're still fighting for the semi-final spot because they have lost 4 in a row. How rare is that? It's the first time that's happened to New Zealand in men's ODI World Cup history. What do you think has gone wrong for them, aside from the fact that these have been fixtures where they've come up against the top-ranked sides?
Yeah, I think they've done well to put up scores, but just that defending a score has been an issue, especially the last game where Fakhar Zaman just went out berserk and at the same stadium. That's why I said it's not an easy stadium to defend. So I think the bowling has a little let down a little the New Zealanders, but all saying that, I mean, their records speak to itself, especially in World Cups, led by one of the finest batsmen, one of the best leaders in the world, Kane Williamson. So I think they have got the side to go through, and New Zealand always comes up with goods when the backs up against the wall. So I think, though they lost 4 games, I think the confidence will be pretty high, taking on a Sri Lankan team which is struggling to form.
That bowling, that card reveals a lot, because these last 4 games, while they have been at venues which are the tougher venues to bowl at this World Cup, India chased 274 quite comfortably. They conceded 388, 357, and then Pakistan's 200 had only taken them 25 overs. So the bowling has to be worrying New Zealand right now?
It has to be, but I think this is the first game New Zealand for the whole tournament have been fully fit, fully 15, and ready to pick from. I don't think they've had the luxury of that throughout the tournament. Kane's being injured coming into the tournament. Tim Southee obviously got injured just before the tournament. Lockie Ferguson got injured a couple of weeks ago and is now back fully fit. So this for me now is New Zealand at its strongest, New Zealand potentially at its freshest, and New Zealand at its best. They won the first game against England. They had then an easy couple of games to go into it. They lost the last 4, but in losing the last 4, they scored 400 against Pakistan. They nearly chased 380 against Australia. Yeah. But what I would say with New Zealand have made some elementary mistakes that New Zealand never make. They've won the toss twice, bowled first, and once against Africa, which I just didn't understand. And then they played the last game out against Pakistan. They played Ish Sodhi in the Chinnaswamy, which again didn't really make a great deal of sense. So New Zealand have made some mistakes in this tournament, but now they're fully fit. Now they've got a fresh bowling unit. I think they'll just come into their own, and if they can win today, I tell you what, you would fancy them to go into the semi-final and give whoever they play, obviously India, a good game.
They have got the first step of the way right, because New Zealand have won the toss and they have elected to field, which could be potentially a vital toss, given that we know there is rain around and you always prefer to be chasing.
Yeah, you always prefer to be chasing. The game's in front of you then. I think with what happened in the Chinnaswamy last time against Pakistan, I think it's probably better that New Zealand chase because of obviously the rain and how good the surface is. So at least they'll know their fate once the 50 overs have done, or however many overs is done, and they can see the game in front of them and make sure that this is 50 overs to get us into the semi-final, and we give it a red-hot crack.
Farveez, I'm going to come to you with the Sri Lanka angle soon, but we do have New Zealand team news coming in, so let's take our viewers through that first. They have made one change. They played Ish Sodhi the last time around at the Chinnaswamy, as Steve Harmison pointed out. He goes out this time, and Lockie Ferguson, who'd sat out the last few games, recovering from an injury, he is back. So they've got their 3 seamers in Ferguson, Boult and Southee, and they go with Mitchell Santner, along with Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell to cover the bowling.
That's their strongest team. That's their strongest team. 6 weeks out from the World Cup in England, without Kane Williamson fit at the time. I think if anybody asked what would be your strongest team going into the tournament at the start, as well as potentially in the knockout stages, that would be it.
Right. So Farveez, just setting up the Sri Lanka context for this game, they've come on the back of 3 defeats to their Asian rivals. The The one against India was crushing in the manner of the way they folded. And the one against Bangladesh obviously carried its own baggage with everything else that happened in that clash. Now they have to bat first with rain around. It feels like the odds are stacked. How do you see Sri Lanka bouncing back?
I think Sri Lanka just need a good start. I can't remember when the first power play while batting as Sri Lanka has won. Even the last game, if I remember right, I think Sri Lanka lost 3 wickets with the new ball. So I think, if Sri Lanka can get off to a decent start, I just read Sanjay Manjaka's pitch report on ESPN Cricket for Matchday coverage. It says batting beauty, bowling horrors. It shows that it's a very beautiful pitch to bat on. And if Sri Lanka can get a decent start and put pressure on that bowling attack of New Zealand, yes, it looks very strong. With Lockie Ferguson coming in with the extra pace he carries through. Trent Boult, he does what he does well, swings the ball up front, and they got 2 decent spinners in the middle as well. So they've got a good side, but if Sri Lanka to have any chance of winning this game, they need to start well in the first 10 overs and target probably scores to 300, because if you think of 325, 350, you probably fold at 300. So if you can, not to target too high and aim 300 and try and get that somehow, hopefully with the new ball, a couple of wickets, Sri Lanka will be in the game.
Yeah, let's take you through what the lineup Sri Lanka are going with before we start picking the pieces of their batting and how it's gone about in this campaign. One change for them as well. Chamika Karunaratne comes back and Kasun Rajitha is the one who misses out. Farveez, your reaction to that?
It was expected. Last couple of games, Kasun Rajitha, wasn't up to the mark where he usually good at. That happened because Dushmantha Chameera took the new ball with Dilshan Madhusanka, and I can't remember even Kasun Rajitha, when did he bowl first change? He's always with the new ball, swings it away, and coming into bowl as the first change. Usually you don't get that shape, and I think that's where Kasun Rajitha has lost its shape and lost some mojo, and got hammered in the last 2 games. So it was quite expected, and what it means is batting deepens for Sri Lanka, and Chamika batting at 8. He's a proper batsman as well. He can play to account in the situation. So Sri Lanka will be strengthened in the batting, but bowling, Chamika is with his bowling, he can be hot and cold. He naturally is quite aggressive. He likes to get on with the game, but you need to be smart as well, playing against a quality side like New Zealand.
You feel that decisions become a little easier seeing the way Angelo Matthews has showed up with the ball in the few games he's played?
Absolutely. I think he has exceeded expectations when it comes to with the ball, many of us. Especially in the last game, the way he bowled with the energy, what he showed, the pace he tried to bowl, picking up a couple of wickets. That's a big bonus for Sri Lanka. Angelo Matthews with the ball, yes. With the bat, he hasn't had a big opportunity yet to get a big one, but with the ball and the leadership in the middle has been brilliant by Matthews. So I think he has brought so much calmness, so much experience to the middle, and it's helping out a lot of youngsters. And Chamika Karunaratne, as I said, being the 4th seam of this team, he's hot and cold. He can be brilliant on a day, or you get smashed around the park another day. So inconsistency has made sure Chamika has been moved away from the side, and Angelo has taken his place. So it's a big opportunity for Chamika as well to stamp his authority in this team.
Yeah, and that move to lengthen the batting, Steve, if you look at where Sri Lanka have fallen short, it will completely add up, because collapses have been a common theme through this campaign, right from the game against Australia. You can obviously think of the Indian innings as a collapse altogether. Collapses have hurt Sri Lanka so much, so it makes sense that they have the batting depth.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's a good pitch, so they can go that with a team who haven't been as confident. They can potentially go that little bit earlier if they get off to a good start, because they've got that depth of batting, and look to try and get that 300 to 320 to 340, which would be close to a match-winning score. So that's always a good thing, to have somebody at number 8 who potentially can clear the rope, and that's what they've got in this. Well, that's the option they've got in this lineup. But I think for me, it comes down to like what's been said before. If they don't get off to a good start, we've seen last night with the Netherlands chasing us total. If you don't get off to a good start in this competition, then you're always playing catch up. And I think, for me, the best teams in this competition has been the best teams who are the best bowling teams. And looking at the New Zealand side, if they get off to a good start, I don't see this bowling attack letting you off the hook. So it's just so important that it's not about number 7, number 8. It's about number 1, number 2, and number 3 in this Sri Lankan lineup, to make sure they not only stay in the game, but give them the best chance of winning it.
One of the curious things from Sri Lanka's batting campaign, Farveez, is that you have 4 batters who've crossed 280 runs in the tournament. I can't think of too many teams who have that. And yet, there's been a case where there's been almost no game, barring perhaps the Pakistan one, where most of them fired together.
Yeah, that's been the biggest problem, the batting. Every game, apart from the first couple of games where they batted well but ended up in the losing side. Except that batting collapses have hurt Sri Lanka when they chased down the score against Netherlands. That was a decent effort as well against England, just chasing 140. But apart from that, setting up scores has been an issue, especially the last game even against Bangladesh. They were well on the way to get a 300, 325, and all of a sudden a collapse in the middle, and it's just not good enough. And you could almost forget about what happens in India because such a good bowling attack of India just destroyed the batting lineup of Sri Lanka. But that can happen. But what cannot happen is consistently, getting yourself collapsed as a batting group when you have such good batsmen who have been in decent form right throughout the tournament. So, this has been the problem for Sri Lanka. Not only in this World Cup, previously, probably for the last couple of years, has been the inconsistent in batting has hurt Sri Lanka much more. So, it's a great chance to finish off on a high, as I said, batting first on a beautiful track. If they get a good start, they could put some pressure on this New Zealand bowling lineup.
Considering how many wickets they've been losing up front, it will be a source of some relief that they come up against a side who have had their own troubles bowling in the power play. New Zealand have not been their usual selves with the new ball so far.
No, they haven't, which is a surprise because they've got Trent Boult. Trent Boult hasn't been the bowler that he is in the IPL, but it's a different. Obviously there's complexities to this. It's the power play is that little bit longer, so you don't have to go against. Don't have to go too hard against Boult too early. But he has had his struggles in this tournament. But not only in a power play, but you see the numbers there. That's not Trent Boult like. But I think now he's got Southey back. Now he's got Ferguson back. I think you might be a little bit different because batters in this tournament so far haven't had the quality of all-round attack against New Zealand. So because of that, they could possibly sit on Trent Boult, like what a lot of teams do with quality spin, and say, right, we'll go at the other end, and we'll make sure we make here and we punish the other end, and not give Trent Boult any confidence by giving him a cheap wicket. Then he gets you another one when a batter is harder to start. So I think the game plan against Boult has been a little bit better and different from the opposition, but it might be a bit different today because of the 3-pronged seam attack that they're going to hit them with, which is obviously their number one attack.
Are we just sticking with Trent Boult? He ranks right up there as a World Cup great given the kind of campaigns he had in 2015 and 2019. But that lack of penetration perhaps with the new ball, not just at this World Cup, but it's been something that has disturbed him in his ODI career playing in India. What do you attribute that to?
I mean, it can happen to fast bowlers. You can go through a period where new ball doesn't swing, or you might carry a small niggle, which not allow you to be 100%, putting the effort in every delivery. So it can be anything. And taking a look at those numbers, first 4 games, economy rate of 4. It goes to show that he's been in fine form when he started. And Trent Boult is a bowler that I've admired a lot with his attitude, with his pace, with his swings, with his movement. And he's always in the park. He's always playing games. I mean, he's a bowler that hardly breaks down in plenty of games. And especially playing in a country like India, where the pitches are so good for batting, you sometimes had to give that leverage to the fast bowlers. On and off, you could go off and you can go for runs. I mean, that is part and parcel of the game. So I think Trent Boult is a matter of time. I think he will enjoy this surface. There is some bounce at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. If he gets the right length, I think he will fancy his chances against ordinary batting. When I say ordinary, in the first 10 overs, how the record has gone with picking up 3 wickets, and he's quite vulnerable with the new ball. So I think he'll be up for the challenge with the new ball against a batting lineup. He's quite vulnerable in the power play.
I think as well on Trent. I think he hasn't played a lot of 50-over cricket recently, so he's obviously turned his central contract down. He's only been playing really T20 cricket, and that has a little bit of a sort of knock-on effect. You see him he is wonderful in the IPL. He's got Jasprit Bumrah at the other end. He is a massive threat to any team in that T20 power play. But this time, I think because of what's been happening around and not having sort of a consistent partner at the other end. Teams have been able to play Trent a little bit different to what they probably normally would.
Yeah, and just to back up that point Steve makes, since he went freelance, Trent Boult had only featured in 11 of New Zealand's last 30 ODIs coming into this World Cup, and only 3 of the last 14 they had played in Asia. So Boult is one area of concern, and New Zealand will hope that he rocks up and starts having the kind of World Cup we've seen him having in the past. But another area of concern for them in the second half of this league phase, Farveez, has been Mitchell Santner. He started the tournament on fire, was among the top wicket takers for the first 3 or 4 rounds of fixtures, and yet if you look at the last 4 matches, he's fallen off a cliff, and now he comes up against a Sri Lankan middle order, which do fancy their chances against spin.
Yeah, Mitchell Santner has been a revelation for New Zealand in the first few games, and then the last few games has not hit the normal straps that he has achieved and set his standard so high. I think still, I mean, he's a brilliant cricketer. He can bat, he can bowl, he can field. Very smart cricketer. He's a player that any captain would like to have in a team, because he's just like Ravindra Jadeja for you on his day. So I think it's just like Trent Boult. I think he's just lacking in confidence, and it's a perfect opportunity for Mitchell Santner as well to bowl against a vulnerable middle order. Again, if in case Boult starts well, Mitchell Santner can dictate a lot of terms in the middle overs, especially with so many right-handers being in that Sri Lankan team in the middle.
I think the part that also becomes important to bring out when we do this first 4 versus last 4 matches comparison is that the first 4 matches did see him bowling on surfaces like Chennai and Hyderabad, where there was a bit in it for spin, whereas now these run of games have come at venues like Dharamsala, Pune, Bangalore. At these venues, is it more prudent for Santner to go to what works for him as a T20 bowler, where it's more about control and perhaps not as aggressive?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key if New Zealand do get to the semi-final, and if they do get to the semi-final, they're going to play at the Wankhede, which is not as conducive to spin as what you would normally have in India. So I think the last 4 matches, if you look at them stats, yes, it doesn't look great. That's against India, Australia, South Africa and Pakistan. On surfaces like Dharamsala and obviously the Chinnaswamy, where everybody got whacked against Fakhar Zaman. So I think you put a little bit of context to what them numbers say, but I think all in all, Mitchell Santner is a fantastic bowler. He is a proper left-arm spin option, which is threatening with wickets. Also, he can contain as well. So again, I keep coming back, sound like a broken record as normal, but it's the same argument. This is the first time they've got their proper bowling attack, and I think the components work with each other. I think Mitchell Santner was a threat in them early parts of it because he had Boult threatening, he had Lockie Ferguson threatening. Now he's got them back. That makes Mitchell Santner even more of a threat than probably he was in the early part of the tournament, because he's had that little indifferent time. When you have a couple of bad games, or a couple of games where you go around the park, it does then refocus as well as you learn from little passages and times when somebody's gone at you, to then whether you go a little bit quicker, a little bit flatter towards a sort of right-hander's leg stump and pack one side, or have you got the confidence of throwing it a little bit higher up there, knowing you've got pressure from both ends. So I would imagine Santner will be more than happy with the last 4 games that he's played to see the ear team back.
So taking what Steve says, Farveez, now that New Zealand have this best bowling combination on the park, how do Sri Lanka's batters need to assess how they go about, and how important does it become as to how they tackle that 5th bowler, which will be a combination of Rachin Ravindra, Darren Mitchell, Glenn Phillips and Mark Chapman?
Again, I think it's very important to start well. And when I say start well, if you look at the successful teams in this World Cup, teams like South Africa, India, what they've done well while batting is to assess conditions in the first to 5 overs, just to see how the bounce, how the pace of the wicket, rather than going bang from the first over. So I know Sri Lanka hasn't done that properly. I think they have probably either gone really hard, or really slow. For example, the game against Afghanistan, where they were so cautious, so careful, and in the end got bundled out for 240. So finding that balance is going to be very important for Sri Lanka. And it's important not to play for the reputation, but just to play the ball. But he's coming at you. I mean, look at the names: Saudi, Boult, and Ferguson. They are world-class bowlers. But one ball at a time and assess the first 5 overs and see if there is no demons much or if there is any swing. Play it properly and get a good start in the first 10 overs. And I think at Chinnaswamy Stadium we have seen many big scores being scored. Sri Lanka still could go out with a high because if everything is gone for Sri Lanka, to be honest, when it comes to the final. But the championship qualifications is up for grabs. So it's all to play for. It's all about starting well. I bet my bottom dollar if Sri Lanka starts well with the bat, they could hurt New Zealand in this game.
And we've spoken about Trent Boult and Lockie Ferguson and Mitchell Santner. But up with the new ball, along with Boult, you'd expect his longtime partner Tim Southee. Obviously came into this tournament later on. Played 2 games so far. What have you made? The figures look leaky, but they've come in high-scoring games. What do you make of what Southee has done after recovering from injury, and where does he need to improve for New Zealand scores today?
Well, he's got the ball to move. That's the thing. He's got the ball to move laterally. It's swung in the 2 games he's played. So I think if it does that again, I think that makes it even more danger for the top order of Sri Lanka's batters. What he's got to do, I think he's got to give it a chance to swing, and he's pitching it up. You look at them numbers. He played 2 games, but obviously won one of the games against Pakistan when carnage was going everywhere. But the first game back, he got 3 wickets. He bowled reasonably well, and I think from a Southee's point of view, he's a wily campaigner. He understands the situation, and he can adapt to it very, very quickly. So if it is swinging, I would imagine he'll go a little bit fuller and say to the Sri Lankan top order batters, "You have a go at me. You hit me. You're not in great form. You have to be in sort of fully balanced, complete control of your movements if you want to score against me. Because if not, I'm going to nick you off, or I can utilise the movement in and around your sort of inside edge around that front pad." And I think if it isn't swinging and do get off to a good start, he's very, very good at dragging his length back and basically saying to the batter, "Well, you're going to have to hit me off that length," and that comes with risk. So he's a seasoned campaigner. He's very, very experienced, and I'm sure he always adapts very, very quickly to what the situation needs.
Just looking ahead in this context, when the second innings does begin, it will pit arguably the 2 standout young performers of this World Cup up against each other. Farveez, Dilshan, the kind of tournament Madhushanka has had, top of the wicket charts, we've heaped enough praise. It's all the more better given when you look at the lack of support and the lack of a similar amount of efficiency from the rest of the Sri Lankan bowling attack.
I think he has single-handedly led the attack for a 21-year-old. The most experienced bowlers in the Sri Lankan side have struggled. And Dushman Chamir, ever since he has come back to the team, and he's been quite steady, but he hasn't hit his normal steps yet. But, talk about Dilshan Madhushanka, 8 games, 21 wickets. Economy is high, I know that, 6.5, but still, he bowls with the new ball, he bowls in the power play, and he bowls in the toss as well. So you expect a 21-year-old to be expensive, but what's impressive for Sri Lanka is with the new ball, he has always picked up wickets, and that too massive big names. So the potential is there, but just that the support for the Dilshan Madhushanka in some games have been short, and that's where we always keep talking about batting in partnership. Even when you hunt as bowlers, you need to hunt in partnership. So that's where I think Sri Lanka has lacked a little bit. And today as well, I'm just looking forward to the battle between Devon Convoy, Dilshan Madhushanka against Rachin Ravindra. Those are 2 brilliant contests that I'm really looking forward to, especially if it does swing under lights in Bengaluru.
Yeah, and Madhushanka to Ravindra in particular, given the kind of campaigns both of them are having. For Rachin Ravindra, it feels like you can't say enough. He's already made a bunch of World Cup records his own. 1 more run and he'll surpass Sachin Tendulkar as the most runs in a single edition for a batter under 25. And continues to get high praise from Williamson yesterday in the presser. Just been so good.
Yeah, he's been brilliant in the tournament. He's been a real find. He come into the tournament probably if Kane Williamson was fit, he was probably coming into a tournament to challenge the Chapman role, which would be to bat a little bit further down, to bowl a little bit offer a little bit of spin. The Phillips Chapman role, which he was probably looking to fill. And now with Williamson getting injured, they found somebody who, at the top of the order, he's a natural opening batter because he opens a batter in first-class cricket, and his ability to stay calm under pressure. There's times when he's batted in this competition. You see there, 523 runs. His ability to stay calm and he looks, he's got, at the crease, he's got so much time. See quick bowlers bowling at him. He is somebody who, plays square of the wicket very, very well. You overpitch, he hits well down the ground, along the floor, and then when the spin comes on, he's very, very good at hitting it over the top down the ground. So I think all in all, I've seen this kid before the World Cup and thought he was a fantastic player. He came to my club, Durham, for one first-class match, got 210 not out in the game. So seen close eyes how good a player the boy is, and he started well in the competition against England, and he's never looked back. And I remember saying right at the very, very start, this boy could be a star of the IPL for a long, long time to come. And I think another one who could do that is Madhushanka, because for me, he's utilised the new ball very well. Forget the 6.5 and over. Not bothered about that. He's a wicket taker. So that could get to 7 or 8 for me. He bowls power play at start, power play at end. That number will always be big as long as he's taking wickets. If he's not taking wickets, the economy rate's a problem. He's in the team to take wickets, and he's done that. And I think the thing that I've really enjoyed about it is when the middle period, when it's knocking the ball about, and it's potentially sitting in from a batter's point of view, he's gone round the wicket, utilised these angles, and he's always looking in his 10 overs to take wickets. And for me, that's a great, great trait to have.
Yeah, that will be a matchup we'll have our eyes on when the second innings unfolds, but almost set for this game to begin. For the moment, the Bangalore weather is staying with New Zealand and with cricket for the time being. Let's get predictions, gentlemen. Sanjay Manjrekar at the pitch report says, and I quote, "This is a batting beauty and one of bowling horrors." So, Farveez, what is the score you're getting Sri Lanka to score?
If Sri Lanka starts well in the power play, loses 1 wicket and scores about 45-50, they'll probably end up between 300 and 320. And if they lose more than 2 wickets in the power play, they'll probably be short and end up around 280 to 85.
Yeah, I'm thinking something similar in a way that when you get a wicket like this and you get top batters on it, it's about the bowlers. And I think New Zealand's bowlers will, come to the fore. And I think if Sri Lanka don't score, if their score's not starting with a 3, then I think New Zealand will chase anything in and around 300. So I think it's got to be over 300 for Sri Lanka. But I see the New Zealand bowlers really standing up, getting their team to the semi-final, and I think it could be in and around 280.
Farveez, you agree with that? You need 300 for Sri Lanka to have a chance?
Absolutely, especially at Bengaluru. Looking at the dimensions of the ground, it's pretty scary being a bowler. So I think 300 is a must. It's a definite, but it all depends on the power play, as I said before.
And if it is a run fest, won't we have a good time here with 2 fast bowlers to dissect the bowling horrors? So I look forward to your company, gentlemen, through the rest of this day. Thank you so much for your time. That just about does it. It's almost time for play to begin in Bengaluru. We're hoping the weather holds. You'll have everything from the match covered for you on the ESPN Cricket Info mobile app. Be sure to download it if you haven't already. And we'll be back here as soon as the first innings ends on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPN Cricket Info Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways.
Stunning looks, then swift,